Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this morning study and to a new week of morning studies. And we're going to start somewhere. I've been doing lots of other studying, not directly related to this, so it might take a bit to get my mind back into it, but let's open with a word of prayer. The dear Father in heaven, we invite your presence once again as we seek to understand your word and its application to our lives personally and to the events that are happening in this world prophetically. And we are thankful that you have brought us here to study, that you have worked in our lives in such a way that we can be here at this time and see the things that we are seeing. So we just pray that your Spirit can speak to us and help us as we continue to dig deeply in your word. We pray for those who are searching, and that you can lead your people who are following Miller's rules, that you can lead them into all truth. So be with us now, we pray, in Jesus' name. Amen. So one of the loose threads that isn't directly related to this study had to do with this chart that we had put together. I had put together back a long time ago, dealing with the 18720, all of the different iterations of those 5 digits. And so Stephen had pointed out yesterday that somebody had noticed there was a mistake in my chart. So I'll send out the complete chart. I'm going to edit a little bit, make it a little bit cleaner and easier for people to follow. But the really interesting thing in that chart is that Donald Trump in 2001, let me see here, there it is. Yeah, I'm going to get rid of some of the things in this chart. But in 2001 at 9/11, from his birthday is going to be the 47th. Is it the 47th iteration or the 49th? Anyway, it's the number 20178. So it's one of the iterations. Here's my diagram here.
Yeah, I think originally you put it as 47th, and then you realized the mistake. It's corrected to 49.
Yeah, we corrected it to the 49th. I'm looking at the wrong chart diagram here. That's why. But the fact that it's an iteration, and then the 72nd is going to be when Trump becomes president again. And the interesting thing about that is when we go through these iterations of these numbers, right? So obviously you're going to start with 0 as the first iteration. Then you have 1 starting the iteration of 5 digits, and then 2. So the final one with 2 is 21870, and that's going to be when Trump becomes president to become the 47th president. And the thing that's pretty odd about that is the next iteration would start with a 7, right? And that's going to be that's like 200 years or something from the beginning, right? So I don't think Trump's going to live that long. So I think it's kind of interesting, basically, that the last iteration with 2 as I shouldn't say 2, because you can have 2-7, but that. Yeah, so you could have 2-7. So we got 2-1, I guess, is the last iteration with 2-1 is the 72nd iteration. And then the next iteration would be 2-7, and that's going to be another, roughly 5,000 days. So that would be beyond Trump's life, right? So that's going to be like another 14 years or something. I think that ends in like 2037 or something like that. So it's just it's kind of remarkable that we have that 9/11 is marked and Trump's inauguration this year, and then the difference between that was looking at a 21780. So that was what? That was, yeah, we already had that number. It was 8532 or something like that days, because it was 8640 minus 108. Yeah, so 8532 days from 9/11. And then we had things with that as well. But anyway, so that was one of the things we had talked about. The other thing was dealing with the chronology of the kings of Judah, particularly Uzziah, or Azariah, as he's called as well. And I completely forgot about the work that I'd done in the past. Now, what we're looking at here today is.
Before you get into that.
Yep. Okay. Dwight, you have another point?
There was, after our conversations yesterday, and I greatly appreciated the way we were all able to address these things and consider points.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at other things yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as you may or may not be aware, where it comes to the history of Great Britain, there was a family that was Scottish in origin that produced several kings that had the throne of England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland. This was a family named Stuart.
Yeah, the House of Stuart.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting that in one of the sons, way back, starting from about the 1200s, there was a genetic mutation. And this genetic mutation was encoded as S as Sierra 781.
Okay.
So you have some of the digits of July 18th, 2020.
Yeah, well, you got the July 18 one.
Okay.
It's 187.
But it intrigued me that it was James V, who became James I of England, King James, as of the King James Bible, that carried this genetic mutation.
Oh, yeah. And what did that genetic mutation do?
That I have not understood yet. I have a link to the video presentation. I was just intrigued by the fact that the digits of July 18th were involved in this mutation.
Oh, yeah. Interesting.
So I know that's an aside, but it...
Yeah. Well, still. Yeah. So to try to figure out, because I've been doing other things, exactly what we had done with chapter 7, 8, and 9. So one is we had dealt with the order of these chapters and tried to figure out the timing of it. And initially I thought this situation with Mephibosheth would have been earlier, but it's going to be later. And that's because, as Ellen White says, when he has rest from his enemies is when he addresses this. Right? So this grandson of Saul, the son of Jonathan, Mephibosheth, is going to address that situation after he has rest from his enemies. Now we know that in these chapters, again, this becomes parenthetical. So you're going to have chapter 7, which is going to be after he had rest from his enemies, and then it's going to talk about the enemies that he hasn't had rest from yet, because he's fighting battles with them. And then they're going to mention Mephibosheth, which isn't mentioned in First Chronicles when they have these chapters. They skip that completely. And so chapter 8 and 10, I believe, are what, 18 and 19 or something like that, or in First Chronicles. Anyway, there's matching chapters there. And so, still trying to figure out why we have these here in this place. Why would we have this story of Mephibosheth placed between these battles with these enemies? Why wouldn't they put, the battles with the enemies? They could have put chapter 8 and 10 and then have chapter 7 and 9 afterwards. So, but there's obviously a reason. What are some of the possibilities? I mean, they have to put the chapters somewhere, but I'm not sure why they would put this chapter here. Maybe it has something to do with the end of chapter 8. And then here, it says, David reigned over all Israel in 2 Samuel 8:15. And David executed judgment and justice unto all his people. And he talks about some of his officers. And then it's going to mention, and David said, is there yet any that is left of the house of Saul? So again, this doesn't really make sense, the order of things. And then you're going to have David defeating Ammon and Syria in chapter 10. And then chapter 11 is going to deal with Bathsheba, which is, after he has rest from his enemies, so to speak, though there is still battles going on, right? So, because, he's going to send Uriah to the front. And then we had looked at this about when the year had expired. And so we had established that this is in the spring. Obviously, this is when the kings go forth to battle. And so we looked at that word, which has to do with Teshuvah, which is just return, the return of the year, right? The same with that word shuv, but it's got the tav at the beginning, and then it's got the feminine ending there, right? So I don't know. So what do we do with all of this? Do we just kind of accept that it's in a different order? That there's some reason, we just don't know what that reason is, why it's ordered in this way. I mean, it does put this chapter as chapter 11, verse 1, which gives us the January 11th date.
The inclusion of the situation with Mephibosheth, would we view it that it's that way also in the Hebrew, or is the Hebrew translation done in line with the English translations?
Where particularly? What are you talking about?
In consideration of the portion with Mephibosheth.
Like the whole portion?
Yeah.
But is there any particular place you want me to compare it with the Hebrew?
Well, no, my question is the Hebrew, is that in line with the English translation to keep it concurrent with what's become the English translation, or was it originally in a different order in the Hebrew, or do we know?
Well, I mean, most of the times the Hebrew and the English are not in the same order.
Right. Okay.
Because Hebrew grammar is different than English. English word order matters more than in Hebrew.
I'm speaking of chapter order.
Oh, you're talking about chapter order. Oh,
Yeah.
The chapter order is the same.
Okay.
Yeah. Like if you're saying if we looked at the Hebrew Bible, do the chapters line up?
Correct.
Because there are some places in the Hebrew Bible where they have different chapters, right? But not in this section. Like if I go to like here where David, and I click on the Hebrew, it's going to have the same verses, right? It's not going to be different. But there are some places where things are different. I think in the Psalms, there's some differences. I'm trying to remember all the different places. I can't remember all the places where the chapters don't line up. But yeah, here the chapters are the same. Okay, I see what you were talking about. Okay. So now when we're dealing with chapter 11, with David and Bathsheba, the thing that I note, of course, is this symbol of 11 verse 1, which we have tied to January 11th, 2026. Right, this future date, which is 8,888 days, I believe, after 9/11.
And this chapter would have occurred after David had been on the throne of United Israel. He would have been about 50 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we know it's not, it's getting closer to the end of his reign, but exactly we don't, because Stephen has a year for it, right? Didn't you have a year in which this occurred, Stephen? Like we thought it was April 19th, this first day of the first month in 1037 or something like that. Or what was that? Or was it, I'm thinking of
Yes.
something.
Yeah, just based on when Solomon is born, his age.
Right. So yeah, so we're basing it on Solomon. So we're saying, so David's gonna have this child with Bathsheba, then he's gonna have another one right after. Right? So we're just saying it's
yeah.
what, 2 years?
I would think so. Yeah, because if Solomon was born in 1035, so David would be 52. So you got 9 months where Bathsheba was pregnant with Solomon. You can maybe allow a bit of time then after, maybe not too much long, after the death of the previous child, and then that's going to be 6 months back, whatever, or sorry, 9 months back.
Although,
So it's probably you're talking about 2 years, I think.
right.
So then we can date this as April 19th, 1037 BC. Had you done that before, Stephen, or not?
Is it actually specifying? You're talking about when the kings go out to battle. Or is it specifying the very first day of the year?
Well, it says when the year was expired. So that's at the turn of the year, right? The return of the year.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's in the spring, but also the kings go to battle in the spring. That's well known. And that's because of it's just before the harvest. So that's the best time. One is, you can capture your enemy's harvest if you want that. But the other thing is if there's going to be a siege of any kind, well, they haven't harvested anything yet. If you go after the harvest, then you're going to have a long, long siege. So that's why the kings go to battle at that time. So yeah. So this would just be this. What's that?
Is that in the? Are you using the Julian or Gregorian?
Julian.
April 19th. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's that in the Gregorian?
April 9th.
Okay. Not too much difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So so the thing is, it points us to April 19th. And so this is part of what, when we were addressing all of this symbolism with this history. Let me see if we can find the chart I was looking at. It's going to be way back here. Okay. Yeah, because we had that April 19th, 2026. And that's because I was looking at Gitium and being this. So we got April 19th, 1985. Well, April 19th, 1844. And then April 19th, 1985, my son Mike is born. And the next day, April 20th, we have the upper room prayer. So we have our first study in the upper room at 12936 65th Street in Edmonton. And 1,664 days later, the Berlin Wall falls. And our prayer, we just equate Hannah's prayer with what the upper room studies were about. Because basically it was a prayer dealing with end time events and what was happening, that we wanted to understand the Bible prophecies related to the Sunday law and all these types of things. So the things we're studying now, those were the topics of the upper room Bible study in the attic of my house. So that word Gitium, that is the two wine presses, we also had April 19th, 2026 being the first day of the first month. So we counted 16,640 days from that upper room prayer to November 9th, 2030. And then 186 years brings us to April 5th, first day of the first month. And then we just go to the first day of the first month in 2026. April 19th is again going to be on the Gregorian calendar. So we just say we got this first day of the first month in this story dealing with David and Bathsheba. But we also have April or January 11th in our structure as well. So exactly what this all means, I'm not certain yet, but we're just noting these details that we have, these symbols. So David and Bathsheba, it's going to be at this time, and it's at the time when the kings go forth to battle. So we have that word time. We've run into that word before, 6256. It's that word et, not oth or at, but this one, which is time and event. The usual word for time could be occurrence, occasion. And then we noted that if you multiply these numbers together, 6 times 2 times 5 times 6, well, it's pretty easy. It's 360. So it's just basically 2 times 5 is 10, 6 times 6 is 36. Right? So you get 360, a symbol of prophetic time. So what would that mean for us in the context of this story with David and Bathsheba? What is it bringing us to? It's also David tarried still at Jerusalem. Notice the word tarried, 3427. We've run into that word before. And that represents the week of Christ from right to left, right? The way we have it in the week of Christ study, which points us to the first day of the first month in 2030. Did you get all that? Is that all in our heads? All these symbols?
No.
Okay, so first we start with this chapter is going to give us January 11th as a symbol. It's going to give us when the years expire. So it's the return of the year, the Teshuvah, and that's in the spring. That's the first day of the first month, the time when the kings go forth to battle. That time is a symbol of prophetic time because the number 6256. If you multiply 6 times 2 times 5 times 6, that's 360. So we've noted that before when we were studying Daniel chapter 11. And then we have David's going to tarry still at Jerusalem. So that word tarried, 3427, is 34 AD and 27 AD. And when we see 3427, we think of the week of Christ as it goes from right to left, right? Because 34 is first and 27 is next. We also have another word, 2734, which symbolizes the week of Christ with the days going from left to right. But in that week of Christ study, we have the years going from right to left. So, and the first day of the first month in 27 AD, if we line it up as years, ends up being 2030, right? And the first day of the first month in 2030 is April 5th, 2030. So again, it ties us to the first day of the first month in 2030, right? Makes sense?
That's interesting.
Yeah. So all these little symbols, things that we've picked up on before, all kind of come together here in this first verse of 2 Samuel. So it gives us a context in which to interpret this story about David and Bathsheba. Now, we've had David representing July 18th. It's the message about the leadership of Christ. Now, however we're going to take this story, we have the moral aspects of the story. It doesn't mean that the moral aspects of the story line up with the symbolism that's in the story, right? We've noted this in other places. So we could say, well, David's going to commit adultery and murder. Maybe that's, something to do with July 18th being, wrong. People could interpret it that way. But we would say that the moral aspects of the story are not really the point always of the stories, of the symbols, right? We would look at what they say in other ways based upon all of the symbols put together. Okay, so it says, and it came to pass in an evening tide. Now the word evening tide in the Hebrew is the time of Erev. So it's the evening time, or the time of the evening. So Erev is that, Erev Boker, evening and morning, right? Boker's morning, evenings, Erev, right? And it has that 6256. So now we had started with the beginning of the year, right? The first day of the first month, and the time when the kings go forth to battle. And now we're going to have that it comes to pass in the evening tide, that is, in the time of the evening. So what would the evening represent?
Besides being the beginning of a new day?
Yeah, just symbolically, what is it that this evening would symbolize in our lines? I call it evening tide, but it could be called sunset. But they don't use the word sunset; they use the word the time of the evening.
Tarrying time?
Okay, so we already had that he tarried still at Jerusalem, and in Millerite history, sunset is the first day of the first month, right? In the context of midnight is halfway between sunset and sunrise, right?
Agreed.
And so when Samuel Snow says, that we're looking from the first day of the first month to the 10th day of the seventh month is nighttime, and midnight is midway, and July 21st, 1844 is midway, then obviously the first day of the first month is sunset. So evening tide would just be another reference to the first day of the first month. Would that be fair? Do people think that that's a fair conclusion? Now, Rand, you sent me a message regarding February 1st, 2020, which I know is just, I don't know if Rand's there, but anyway, he sent a message to me of it. Okay, so we got the first day of the first month symbolized in this story, and it's going to be come to pass at evening time, the first day of the first month. Now, where do we mark the first day of the first month in our history, generally? So Jeff had first day of the first month being 9/11, but we've moved the first day of the first month over to November 9th, 2019. And that's because Jeff was actually looking at two different lines together, right? Ellen White's line, where 9/11 is the first day of the first month, right? The repeat of history, the Sunday law. But we've moved that over to November 9th. So is this going back in our history to November 9th? And if we go to November 9th, July 18th is just beginning there, right? So this could be a repeat and enlarge of our line. So not bringing us to the end of the line, but going back to what happened on November 9th. Now on November 9th, we're going to have, just excuse me here. Yeah, so on November 9th, we have, I'm at the School of Prophets, so is Stephen and Odilio. And I'm going to be presenting the 273 connection with the Mayan calendar. Now, if it's bringing us back to that time, that's possible. It could be, of course, we could be thinking about the first day of the first month being April 5th, 2030. That's a symbolic date in the future. So I'm not sure what we should do with this. But it says David arose from off his bed. So is there any symbolism that we could have here? David arising from off his bed. Is there any symbolism about that we could draw from this? Okay, well, let's take a look at this. Okay, so arose, just rise, stand up. It's the word kum. If we look at verses that use this, usually the first mention is the strongest symbol. Sometimes we look at verses that have symbols attached to them by the verse numbers, but the first time somebody arises is, we got it in Genesis 4. So it's probably Genesis 4, verse 8. Okay. So Genesis 4, verse 8, rose, and Cain talked with Abel, his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel, his brother, and slew him. So this word rose up in this context is him being aroused in anger against his brother. Genesis 19:33. It's in 1 Samuel 18:27. Wherefore David arose and went. So that's the 1827. You got the digits of July 18, 2020 there. Okay, and then he rose up from off, and that's just simply that word all. It's just a preposition. And then his bed, mishkab. A bed, figuratively a bier, abstractly sleep. Right? Obviously, it could be sleeping with someone as well. And that one first mention is Genesis 49:4. Unstable as water, thou shalt not excel, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed. Then defilest thou it, he went up to my couch. Okay, so dealing with the blessing of Jacob's sons, particularly here in this case, Reuben. So got that. It's just it's in Genesis 494. And what's the significance of the number 494? That's the number of months from when the manna began to fall to when it ceased falling. Right? From the 16th day of the second month in 1533 to the 16th day of the first month in 1493. So I don't know if that's significant here. It's just, I noticed that. Anything else about this verse?
Well, I was wondering if it was linked somehow to Matthew 25. 5, while the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept.
Oh, okay. I like that. Because we got this tarrying going on. And it brings us to the first day of the first month when the tarrying begins in 1844. And then we're paralleling that with our history with the second angel's message. Okay. So David arising would be the virgins arising?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that, okay, that makes sense. So we'll see where this leads us. And walked upon the roof of the king's house. So the roof, the top, it's the word Gog, first mentioned in Deuteronomy 22:8. When thou buildest a new house, then thou shalt make a battlement for thy roof, that thou bring not blood upon thine house, if any man fall from it thence. So that means if you build a house, you have to build a wall so that people don't just walk off your roof and fall and hurt themselves. But anyway, I don't know if that's relevant to this story or not. But anyway, when he walked upon the roof of the king's house, and from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. Okay, so washing, to bathe. Woman, of course, usually represents a church. And David sent and inquired after the woman and said, is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? And David sent messengers and took her, and she came in unto him, and he lay with her, for she was purified from her uncleanness, and she returned unto her house. And the woman conceived and sent and told David and said, I am with child. Now, the word child is 2030, the Hebrew number. So that's kind of interesting. Now, it's one number different than the word conceived. So the word conceived is 2029, and the word child is, so she's with child, so she's pregnant, right? So you got these two words, hare, or hari, which is 2030, and then 2029, it is hara, to conceive, right? So one, I guess, would be, like conceived is an action, to be with child is a condition. I don't know. It's not really, pregnant isn't really a noun, but it's, at least an adjective. Okay. So then when he finds that she's with child, David sent unto Joab, saying, send me Uriah the Hittite. And Joab sent Uriah to David. And when Uriah was come unto him, David demanded of him how Joab did, and how the people did, and how the war prospered. And David said to Uriah, go down to thy house and wash thy feet. And Uriah departed out of the king's house, and there followed him a mess of meat from the king. So the king's going to send him food. But Uriah slept at the door of the king's house with all the servants of his lord, and went not down to his house. And when they told David, saying, Uriah went not down unto his house, David said unto Uriah, camest thou not from thy journey? And why then didst thou not go down unto thine house? And Uriah said unto David, the ark and Israel and Judah abide in tents, and my lord Joab and the servants of my lord are encamped in the open fields. Shall I then go into mine house, and eat and drink, and to lie with my wife, as thou livest, and as thy soul livest? I will not do this thing. And David said to Uriah, tarry here today also, and tomorrow I will let thee depart. So Uriah abode in Jerusalem that day, and the morrow. So there's a bunch of symbolism here, as you can see as we read through this. So one is we got this basically today and the morrow, right? So that means he's going to be there 3 days, right? Okay. So we have that symbolism. Now, we also need to look at the names, of course, because we got Uriah, and his name means Jehovah is my light or flame. So it's 217 light and 3050. Yeah. And then we have Bathsheba and daughter of the oath, right? So, or the 7 times, right? So 1323 plus 7651, which is Sheba, in the sense of 7. So Sheba.
So July 18th is going to the 2520. And
Okay, what are you saying, William?
I said July 18th is going to the 2520, right?
Is joined to the 2520?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, not in an exact direct way.
But this is the offspring, which dies.
Okay, so you're just saying David's July
I'm just thinking
18th.
it through. I'm sorry, I'm just thinking it through.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. So you're just saying David being July 18th, and you have the 2520, and they produce this child, which is going to die, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, it could be going back to November 9th and then talking about basically what happens in this movement symbolically. Yeah, Dwight?
Why are there 2 names for Bathsheba and for her father?
What do you mean 2 names for Bathsheba?
All right. You've been reading 2 Samuel 11:3.
Yeah. Okay, there's another place where she's called something different.
Yes. So
Okay.
just consider for a second, because you made it very clear about the 2 numbers about, what was it, child and
conceived
and
with child, being with
child.
child and
Right.
conceived. Yeah, they're just, yeah.
So
Okay.
you have Bathsheba, so Bathsheba, Hebrew 1339.
Yeah.
In 1 Chronicles 3:5, she is denominated as Bathsheba.
Yeah. And the daughter of, instead of Eliam, it's Ameliel.
But the Bathsheba 1339, Bathsheba is 1340.
Yeah. So this one, Bathsheba, daughter of wealth. So it's from a different word altogether, from
Right.
7771.
So what else does that tell us?
I don't know. But definitely Bathsheba and Bathsheba are different meanings. It's not just a different spelling, it's a different meaning.
Right.
Well, it's got the Hebrew number 7771 for Shua. So it's got the 3 sevens plus a 1 at the end.
That's interesting, because if you reverse that, what you were just referring to,
Yeah.
you said 7771. If you reverse that to 1777,
Yeah.
you are 21 away from 1798.
Yeah. Well, I just think it relates to the 777 structure, likely, but okay. So obviously Bathsheba dealing with the daughter of the 7 times.
Right.
So as William was pointing out, you got the 2520, and then you have David being July 18th. And if we had them combined at the first day of the first month, I mean, the question is, what is the relationship between the 2520 and July 18th? I mean, there's lots of relationships, not a direct relationship, right? It's not like, the 2520 directly gave us July 18th, but indirectly it did through all the different chronology and studies and timelines and so forth. But if they're going to, in this case, it would be from a moral standpoint, if we're looking at the story, it's an adulterous relationship. And it's going to lead to murder, right? So not directly, but he would be a murderer by putting Uriah at the front line so that he dies, right? So he's not going to kill him with his own hand. He's going to kill him like a coward. And so from a moral point of view, doesn't look very good. But from a symbol, we could take it in our line. Just how would we relate this to our lines then?
If we looked at this with David as July 18th, Bathsheba as representing a church or movement, is the decision to provide a warning but affix a date to it the issue that we need to consider here?
Okay, well, July 18th is a date.
Well, no, I'm saying affix an event and saying that Nashville will be destroyed on such and such a day.
Okay. Yeah, so it could have to do with the fact that July 18th was then. Now, so let's not look at this totally morally, because we know David's at fault. But so I'm not putting the blame on Bathsheba morally, but she is bathing so that she can be seen. Is it that David is tempted by this?
At that point in time, how many wives did David have?
I lost track.
Too many.
Well, he either had 6 wives or he had 7 wives.
Okay, yeah. So he had a few.
And he also had concubines.
Yeah. But the fact is, let's just get rid of the moral aspects of the story and all those other details. Just from the symbolism that's here, we have, if we're at November 9th is when we're going to adopt, that is, FFA is going to adopt July 18th. So Bathsheba being the daughter of the 7 times, could that refer sort of to FFA in some way, being a woman? And David connecting then July 18th with this prediction about Nashville. I don't know. Just to try to follow what you're asking. Because morally in the story, we know David's in wrong. We're not trying to blame Bathsheba that she just tempted David, and David has done wrong. But here the question is, why is Bathsheba bathing so that she can be seen? Is the question. I mean, I'm not sure.
But if she was bathing at night, maybe she was doing that so she wouldn't be seen.
Well, it's at evening tide, so it's in the evening. You're still going to be able to be seen, right? But I'm just saying, if we put this at November 9th, because we're going to say that that's evening, that's going to be the arrival of the second angel's message. And we have all these things pointing us to the first day of the first month. And we mark that as November 9th, 2019. And November 9th, 2019, I'm at the School of the Prophets. July 18th now is going to, it happens gradually prior to that, because obviously Stephen and Odilia are presenting there about July 18th in Nashville prior to me arriving. But with the passing of November 9th, 2019, Jeff is definitely taking up July 18th. So I don't know. That's just my suggestion. But yeah, we can kind of get mired down a little bit with some of the moral issues in this story. But I don't think we necessarily have to attach all the moral aspects to the symbolism when we take the story, because we've done that in other places, like the story of Esther and so forth, and Samson. So now we could also look at Eliam, and that's just my people, the people of God, basically, God of the people. The people is Eli is my God, right? So you got El, God, and people. Okay, so we got those 2 words together. Now in
How old was David at that time?
50, it's right halfway through his kingship. It's right in the middle, basically. He's been king for 20 years.
50 represents Pentecost, don't it?
Yep, it can represent Pentecost. Also can represent a Jubilee cycle. So the 2520 is related to that. Yeah, just people of God. So Amiel's just putting the people first and the God last. It's kind of interesting how you have this name where you got God and people together and a person's name two different things. So instead of Eliam, he's Amiel. Interesting. Means the same thing, but just a different word order for his name. And then why Bathsheba is instead of daughter of the 7 times daughter of wealth here. Right. And this is going to be where it talks, and we've looked at this before, the descendants of David and his wives. And he reigned 7 years and 6 months in Jerusalem and 33 years, or 7 years and 6 months in Hebron and 33 years in Jerusalem. These become really, these are interesting puzzles, but, they're also very serious things. We're studying God's word here, but it's just, there's so much here that, we could just skip over. The fact we got these different names is kind of interesting. Usually I look at some of the Hebrew numbers of it, and, I'm not talking much here. I'm just thinking.
Well, it's interesting to note that the daughter of the 7 times was born of the people of God.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so the people of God.
I'm thinking washing herself is like where Jesus said, now you're clean to the word which I've spoken unto thee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is puzzling to me. I mean, there's just a lot of symbolism here. So you got Uriah the Hittite. So if he's a Hittite, why is he in David's army? That means he's actually a Hittite. It's not just like where he's from.
And that's been a big question, because if he is actually a Hittite,
yeah,
then he was of those that were enemies of Israel.
Right. So that's what I'm asking about. Like sometimes people, it's just, they lived in a certain location or something like that, but is he actually a Hittite? Yeah, so the Hittites, the descendant of Het. Okay, so in 11:11, it says, 2 Samuel 11:11, and Uriah said unto David, the ark of Israel and Judah abide in tents. So they have like a permanent place to abide in. We got the word, of course, abide is the same as the word tarry, that 3427. Tents is, we have different words for it, but this is sukkah, a hut or a lair, a booth, a cottage. So it's not really just a tent, it could be. And then, of course, the military is encamped in the open field. So in encamped, that word, we've looked at that word because it has to do with the declining of the slanting rays of evening, and so we have the idea of a tent that's, pegged down with ropes and stakes, right? Okay, and David said to Uriah, tarry here. So he's going to tell him to tarry today also, and tomorrow I will let thee depart. So this brings us to the 3 days. So he's going to be there 3 days, right? And David had called him, he did eat and drink before him, he made him drunk, and at evening he went out to lie in his bed with the servants of his Lord, but went not down to his house. And he wrote, and it came to pass in the morning that David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it by the hand of Uriah. And he wrote in the letter saying, set ye Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle, and retire ye from him. That word retire is shuv, right? Turn. Ye from him, that he may be smitten and die. Now, smitten is, of course, that word we've run into, 5221, which is December 25th backwards. And it came to pass when Joab observed the city that he assigned Uriah unto the place where he knew that valiant men were. And the men of the city went out and fought with Joab, and there fell some of the people of the servants of David, and Uriah the Hittite died also. And then Joab sent and told David all the things concerning the war, and charged the messenger, saying, when thou hast made an end of telling the matters of the war unto the king, and if so be that the king's wrath arise, and he say unto thee, wherefore approached ye so nigh unto the city when ye did fight? Knew ye not that they would shoot from the wall? who smote Abimelech, the son of Jerubshet, did not a woman cast a piece of a millstone upon him from the wall, that he died in Tebez? So that's a reference to which? Jerubbaal, right? Story of Jerubbaal.
Is it Jerubbaal or is it Abimelech?
Well, he's using the word Jerubshet. That's Jerubbaal.
Okay.
Right? I'm just saying that Abimelech, right, the son of Jerubbaal, if that's what you're asking. You see what I'm saying?
I do.
Right? Yeah, so that's why I'm saying Jerubbaal. I thought you were asking about the name. But yeah, it's Abimelech, the son of Jerubbaal. The son of Jerubbaal is Gideon, right? So this is Abimelech. This is the first king, technically, that they have in Israel. Of course, he's not appointed by God, but so he's going to be killed by a millstone. So we've looked at that story. So this refers us back to another story. Now, is that important?
Has to be.
Yeah. So
Must be.
yeah, and it's kind of a strange thing, because this is Joab saying to the messenger, you know, when he gets upset with you and says this to you, why did you go so near? Didn't you know they would shoot from the wall? And who smote Abimelech, the son of Jerubbaal, right, Jerubshet? Did not a woman cast a piece of millstone upon him from the wall, that he died in Tebez? Why went ye nigh to the wall? Right? Now that is, Joab is anticipating that David is going to refer back to this other event, right? Which is kind of funny, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like he's putting pretty specific words in the mouth of the king. So it seems kind of odd.
Yeah, trying to say that it was Uriah's foolhardiness that led to his death.
Yeah. Now the question is this planned by David and Joab beforehand, that David would say this to a messenger? That doesn't really make much sense to me. So I'm a bit puzzled by this. And then you're supposed to say, well, thy servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. So the messenger.
Yeah, an afterthought.
Yeah. So the messenger went and came and showed David all that Joab had sent him for.
Isn't Joab being a bit disingenuous?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, let's remember how Joab had been in regard to Abner. Now, here's Joab. He gets an order to have one of the most valiant of the men placed in a way where he would be killed.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, he's saying, okay, we went up against the fortified city. There was a battle. We got close and Uriah got killed. It's not my fault that he got close, but it is his fault because he followed David's orders.
Okay.
Joab could have stood up and said to David's his cousin? Or is David his uncle?
I know, he's related in some way.
Isn't he a son of Zeruiah?
Yep.
If he's a son of Zeruiah, then he is David's nephew.
Okay.
He could have stood up and said, my lord the king, this is not good.
Okay. I guess I'm puzzled by what you mean by disingenuous.
He's trying to deflect blame from the death of Uriah.
Okay. Well, yeah, that just doesn't. The word disingenuous doesn't mean that.
Then what am I implying it wrong?
Yeah, because disingenuous means when somebody's insincere or pretending to know less about something than what one really does.
Really?
Yeah.
Isn't he trying to pretend that he knows less about the death of Uriah here?
No, I don't think anything's being hidden here.
Okay, then we have a disagreement. That's all.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I don't quite understand how you're looking at the story. So, so, so Uriah specifically, he knows what David is doing. He's not pretending to David, but maybe you could say to the messenger that he's not letting the messenger know exactly what's going on.
Well, he's definitely not revealing himself to the messenger.
Yeah, but to David, he understands what David's doing, and David would know what he's doing, right? Like, I don't think any of that's hidden, is it?
As in wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I mean,
Yeah, I
it's
don't know.
it's almost like the death of Uriah is being treated as an inside story between Joab and David.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the way that I would look at it. Okay. So you're talking about disingenuous towards the messenger, then, not towards David.
The messenger has to give a message back to the king.
Yeah, yeah. I just thought you were saying he was disingenuous towards David.
He's not saying the truth to the messenger.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's pretty obvious. Okay, I see what you're saying now. Okay. Yeah, but he knows what's going on. Like like it's not that David doesn't know, like he's not really hiding this from Joab, but he's not stating it really directly. Like they're sort of doing this, I guess, I don't know. Yeah, by code, so to speak. Like the intent is obvious. But the thing that's puzzling to me is would it be almost like that's going to be asked of the messenger? Like that's a pretty elaborate thing to say, to tell the story about Abimelech and Gideon, the son of Gideon, when Abimelech was killed by this millstone. And we've studied that story in detail, right? So is it referring us back to that story for some reason?
I would think it would have to be.
Yeah. So it's just peculiar, right? Like you wouldn't think that somebody would put those words into David's mouth. Like you're sending a messenger and he's going to ask you this very specific thing about something in the past. Like you understand what I'm getting at here, right?
Well, in this situation, it'd be like if I was going to apply the battle of Antietam into this story.
The battle of what?
Antietam, one of the more famous battles of the Civil War.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one.
Okay. I mean, we talked yesterday about the Battle of Plattsburgh, which, of course, was the War of 1812.
Yeah, even though it was 1814 when the battle happened, because the War of 1812 started in 1812.
But continued, right.
Yeah. Yeah, that always puzzled me as a kid. Like, what, War of 1812 sounds like, that's the year it happened, but no.
It's like if I brought up the War of the Roses. Now, why would anybody want to go fight over a bunch of plants?
Yeah. But yeah, I guess.
Maybe because they smell good.
They're nice and prickly.
Yeah. So, so anyway, here we got this, but you understand my point about the very specific thing that he says that David's going to say to this messenger.
Right, I get that.
Like that is weird, right? Like in some way it doesn't seem natural, so I'm wondering if this is some sort of, maybe he's conveying a message to the messenger, like by saying, well, here's what David's going to say to you. Well, that's a pretty obscure thing to say. So anyway, we'll just read this here. The messenger said unto David, surely the men prevailed against us and came out unto us into the field, and we were upon them even unto the entering of the gate. And the shooters shot from off the wall upon thy servants, and some of the king's servants be dead, and thy servant Uriah the Hittite is dead also. So, he just tells them this, right? He doesn't wait for David to respond. Then David said unto the messenger, Thus shalt thou say unto Joab, Let not this thing displease thee, for the sword devoureth one as well as another. Make thy battle more strong against the city, and overthrow it, and encourage thou him. So it seems to me that Joab is trying to tell something to the messenger so that he kind of understands it, but indirectly. But whether David understands that the messenger understands that. But anyway, there's something going on here that I don't fully comprehend. And when the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah, her husband, was dead, she mourned for her husband. And when the morning was past, David sent and fetched her to his house, and she became his wife and bare him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. So we're going to have to come back to this tomorrow, but this is a pretty complicated story. There's just so much here, and then we have to sort through this and make sense out of it. Any final thoughts before we close with prayer?
Yeah, there's a parallel between verses 25 and 27. Displease the Lord, please thee.
Let not this thing displease
evil in
thee.
thine eyes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, we got a lot cut out for us this week to look at, but let's close with prayer. Dear Father in heaven, thank you for the time that we have had this morning. And we just pray for your Spirit to continue to teach us, help us to understand these passages and how it pertains to us and the message you're trying to give us. We pray that you can be with each person, that your angels can watch over us, and that you can help us to reveal your character to those around us. And we pray this in Jesus' name.